First of all, I want to thank everyone for coming to the Home Improvement Fair. I don't think we've had better weather this time of year to hold a fair like this, and it's good to see so many people turn out. It's been a great turnout, and we hope you feel the same. My name is Brian Duerwachter. I'm a program specialist with Bloomington Housing and Redevelopment Authority, and with us we also have Stephen Schmidt. He too is a program specialist with the Housing Authority, or HRA. And together we're going to talk about the new loan offerings that we have for you as Bloomington residents here in the city. One loan is basically a modification of an existing one that we had, but we have more favorable terms with that loan. The other one is a completely new offering that will be offered in a focus area in Northeast Bloomington. I'll talk a little bit about that towards the end, but what we're going to start with is the first loan offering that's citywide. I'll talk about the loan program, things that are going to be offered. I'll turn it over to Stephen. He's going to tell you how to participate and actually access this funding. And then he'll turn it back over to me to talk about the what we call Curb Appeal Loan Program, that focus loan. So 40-some degrees today. It's warm. We're thinking about home improvements. I know at my house we are. I know my wife is, because she gives me a list every year about this time of year. And I look at the list she gives me, I look at the house, I look at the list again, it's getting warm. My first thought is if the golf courses are going to be opening up pretty soon. Yeah, so seriously though, I love living in Bloomington. I love fixing up my home. It's your most expensive asset you're ever going to, or most of us anyway, will ever own, and it makes good sense to take care of it. As we look at, life happens, you got bills stacking up, we have our income, hopefully they kind of even out. If the bills really start stacking up and then you throw home improvements in, well, and the income doesn't take care of it, hopefully with this deferred loan, we can help you, because it's a type of a program and a loan that you do not incur monthly payments and or payments of the principal and interest, yet you pay it off when you sell, transfer title, or no longer live in the home. So that's what we're going to talk about. And after we're done, we'll turn it over to you for questions. And if you have any questions after we're completed, we'll hang around too. So hopefully this can work out. So we say, what is a housing rehabilitation loan? It assists owners of Bloomington properties living in Bloomington to finance your home improvements that affect the health, safety, the livability, and efficiency of your home. Pretty generic, actually, description, but that's really what it does. It's here to help you fix up your home. And as I mentioned earlier, it's a citywide loan, this first one that we're talking about. Anyone that lives in Bloomington and owns their home can apply for this program. The maximum amount you can borrow is $35,000 or the equity that you have. Now, I'll talk a little bit later about how we calculate equity, but just for now, the maximum amount that anyone can borrow is $35,000. That's a sizable chunk of money, but we look at it, it won't do everything, but it'll do a lot to help you make your home improvements. And this is a new part to this program, and I mentioned earlier that we've had an existing loan for upwards of 35 years, I think 33 years in its current form, but the interest rate used to be at 4%. We've now cut it in half down to 2%. So that's a very favorable interest rate for you as a borrower. And the interest on these types of loans calculate for 10 years. As long as you're not selling your home, you're still living there, and it's not due and payable, you will pay the loan, it'll accrue that 2% interest on the full amount only 10 years. After 10 years, no more interest. And you still don't have to pay it back, again, as long as you're still living in that home. And finally, that interest is not compounded. So let's say you borrow $10,000 under this loan. 2% of $10,000 is $200. It'll accrue interest $200 the first year, $200 the second, $200 the third, on up to 10 years. And then no more interest at the 10-year point. So on a $10,000 loan, you'd pay back $12,000 as long as you're living there 10 years and beyond. And that's another way of saying these loans do not compound. Okay? And then we say it can be used for the rehabilitation of single-family owner-occupied homes, duplexes, townhomes, and condos. Now, in a townhome and a condo, this does not cover common area improvements. It does cover what you own. what you are responsible for as a townhome or condo owner. And on duplexes, we will do the side that someone owns. The rented side, we do not touch. This loan would not touch that side. It would do the common, like say if we were doing a roof on a duplex, I believe we would do the whole roof, but anything inside that rental unit is not eligible under the program. So we look at what is a deferred loan, and that's the tool we use here. That's what makes us a very favorable and attractive loan. A deferred loan is another way of saying it's delayed. The payment of the principal and interest is delayed until you sell, transfer title, or no longer live in the home. It's delayed or deferred. Once one of those occurrences happen, then you pay it back. Now, I will say the most common way that these loans are paid back is when a homeowner sells. That's typically the most common way. Other ways, if someone refinances, you want to pay us off at any time. We do allow that payment, but it's one lump sum. We do not accept monthly payments. And then at 40 years, they are due and payable actually at 40. And believe it or not, we have some loans that are, I think, 33 to 35, somewhere thereabouts. There are a couple left that, haven't been paid, which is a good thing. That means people are not selling their homes. It's stable. They love to live in their home. So we look at what's eligible. What can I do with this loan? What kind of improvements can I undertake? And we list the examples up here, but what I like to define it as anything that's considered a permanent improvement is eligible. And we'll define permanent as any repair that you use the loan money for. If you were to sell your home, say 5 years later, the money that you use to make those improvements, you cannot take that improvement with you. And an example is like an appliance that you couldn't use the money for. If we allowed the money to be used for an appliance, when you sell, it's easy to take an appliance with you. So we say that's not eligible. Back to the permanent improvements, it's pretty wide open. I think roofing, siding, windows, electrical, driveways, plumbing, HVAC, interior finishes. If you want to update a kitchen, you want to update a bathroom, you want to finish off your basement, it's pretty wide open. Again, that permanent is kind of the definition that I use to try and explain what is eligible. Okay, the things that you cannot do, I had mentioned appliances. If you want to put that hot tub in there, I'm sorry, it's not going to happen, not with the loan. Gazebos, we say high-end materials. Now, we don't want to put something that is of a low quality either. I use automobile terms here. We want to put in like a Ford Taurus. We don't want to put a Rolls Royce in for a material. We want something that's good quality, but not the most expensive, because quite frankly, usually the homes that we're dealing with, they don't have that Rolls Royce of materials in it anyway. So typically those aren't eligible. Sheds are not eligible. There are some others, but for the most part, what you're looking at on your house as a permanent improvement is going to be eligible. So as far as am I eligible to participate, you must own your home. You must live in Bloomington. You have to have equity. And we calculate equity by taking your tax assessed value. Hennepin County has, if you go on the Hennepin County website, put in property tax, it'll tell you what your tax assessed value is. We use that as your house value. And then we subtract out the amount of if you have just one mortgage, whatever the payoff is on that mortgage, we'll subtract it from your value to come up with your equity. And the equity is the amount you can borrow, or $35,000. Whichever is less. That's the maximum amount you can go to. So we say you have to have some equity. And if you have less than $35,000, then your loan amount is going to be up to the amount of that equity that you do have. And then you must be income eligible. And here's change number 2 we did with this loan. We've we've increased the income limits up to what we call 100% of your tax assessed value. We used to go to 80%. That was called a low moderate income or moderate income. We've increased it now to 100% of your tax assessed, of Hennepin County. Hennepin County has income limits, and this is 100% of that income limit. As an example, a household of 4, the income limit I believe is around 65, I think. It's now increased to 86,600 if you look on the chart. So it's over 20,000 that we've increased the income limit. So that's a substantial change. and we feel we're going to get a big turnout on the number of people that will be, more people that will be eligible for the program. So you do have to be income eligible, back to that point. Okay, so any questions about what we've said so far? Oh, go ahead.
I have a couple questions. First, does it cover garages?
Yes, it does.
And then I have a pool, but I have some concrete around the pool, so the concrete around it can be covered, or like a deck, for instance, that maybe close to it.
Yeah, so the question is about pools and the concrete and the deck around that. If you're doing the maintenance, yes. If you have to, repair it, to completely replace it, I don't want to. I hate to say no, but if you're doing that as far as the pool itself, typically those are not eligible. We'd have to talk with you about that later, though. I can't. Yes, but now you talk about the deck. Did you mention deck too?
Yes, both.
Okay, is the deck attached to the house?
Yes.
Okay, that is eligible to do a replace of the deck. Okay.
And is that HRA or the income limits? So you're adjusted?
I'm sorry, adjusted gross income? Yeah, it is. Yep. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Stephen, and like I said, I'll answer the other questions after. He'll tell you how to participate in the loan.
Good afternoon. All right, so the first thing is going to start with completing the application. The applications are green for this program that Brian started with. They're found right here in the box. You can also take them off our website, or we have a booth. You can also pick them up at any time in our office, which is coincidentally right across the hall from where our booth is located here in Civic Plaza. So if you'd like, you can contact us, contact the main office. We'll be happy to send one out to you as well. After that, we verify your eligibility. So we bring in, depending on how you're paid, if you're paid bi-weekly, weekly, we look for your 3 most recent check stubs. If you're self-employed, we look into your taxes. It's going to depend on how you claim your income. We look at the equity. I guess Brian touched on that with doing a tax assessed value. If you feel the tax assessed value isn't representative of your actual income, of your actual value of your property, you can have an appraisal. It needs to be done by a licensed appraiser, but we can take that amount and we'll just subtract it from your principal or outstanding principal balance of your loan. And then we need the proof of ownership. So we'll generate that from either contacting the county, or if you have a deed, if you own your home, you need a copy of that. And well, that's it. On to the next thing is a property inspection. So both Brian and myself will come out, or either Brian or myself will come out to your property. We'll walk the property with you. We want to go through every room in the house, make sure, if you have issues, light switches, things like that, all those things get addressed. You can get them taken care of. We can do like accessibility improvements and things like that. Those are all necessary for us to do an inspection so we can identify exactly what you want to have done. Along with that inspection, we're looking for what's called housing quality standards. Those are looking like obvious health and safety type issues. If there's a big hole in the floor, someone could fall in, a staircase is missing, or the handrail's missing. Those sort of things should be addressed with the loan to make sure that you're ensuring, we're both insuring our investment in the property. So the typical things we find are just like smoke detectors aren't in the right spot. Maybe there's not enough for the property. You may have painted a room and you didn't put outlet covers back on, so we have exposed electrical wires someone could put their hand in. They're usually pretty minor repairs. In entering into the loan, you agree that you'll take care of those things, whether you do them yourself or if you hire a contractor and use the loan funds to get them taken care of. And then all homes built before 1978 are required to have a lead test. So we hire an outside firm. They come in, it takes about 3 hours. It's called a lead risk assessment. They'll test essentially every surface in your home, in and outside of your home. Now, as far as that, as painted surfaces, if they're intact, they're not peeling, chipping, flaking, you can't easily remove the material on them, they're fine. We're looking to make sure that we take care of anything in a failed state. So we can use loan funds to take care of that. Those things usually overlap. People are tired of repainting their soffit and fascia. They want to wrap them in aluminum, so we end up doing that through the loan program anyways. After that, we get the results back from the lead test. If there are anything that's found to be in a failed state, we'll make a change to the bid package. But from there, it's time for you to interview contractors. So we do offer contractor list as a place for you to start. We're required to gather a minimum of 2 estimates for this loan program. You're not limited to the contractor list by any means. It's just kind of a helpful way. Certainly encourage you to get more estimates on things that you question. Both Brian and I review the bids, excuse me, to make sure that, they're comparable, make sure that they're bidding apples to apples. So in addition to that, if I could back up a little bit, we do write a work scope for your project. Make sure that the contractors are bidding on the same thing. We include specific things, numbers of windows, types of materials you want to have included in there. It kind of helps us just to narrow it down. Make sure that people aren't bidding, too far off of that. So the loan will cover up to the lowest bidder. You're welcome to pay the difference between the low and the high bid. My recommendation is that if you're really not sure you want to work with the lowest bidder, then certainly obtain another bid. You want to make sure that you work with the contractor that you feel most comfortable with. After that, it's time to sit down. Anyone whose name is on the title are required to include on the mortgage itself. This is a mortgage or lien against the property, so it needs to have a paper trail to follow everyone whose name is on the title. We sit down, we'll read through the closing papers together, and you sign, and that's about it. It takes a day or 2 for approval after that. Make sure that they don't loan the money out 2 places. We send our information up to finance, and when we get that back, it's time for the contractor to do the work. So we recommend you contact the contractor, get on the list, get them out there to complete the work. When they're finished, the contractor sends us an invoice. We'll request a check, and then Brian or myself will come back out and take a look at the work. We want to make sure that the work is done to the scope. Permits are pulled if it's something that's necessary for that. Also want to make sure that contractor, that you're satisfied with the work, they did everything that they said they were going to do. And then both Brian and I will make sure that we get a lien waiver back from the contractor to prove that he's been paid. And that's it. We don't put any money up front for the contractors. It's paid on completion. We do have a 4-day turnaround for payment. So if a contractor gets us a check in the beginning of or an invoice in the beginning of the week, we can get them paid by the end of the week. So, yes, sir.
You mentioned it's sort of a mortgage against your house.
Yes.
Are there any kind of closing costs we have to pay?
There are no closing costs involved in this loan. We take care of even the recording fees. So if your project costs $13,500 to get, let's say, your siding and your windows replaced, that's all you pay. There's no origination fees, no closing fees, anything like that. You're only paying for the cost of the repairs you're doing to your property. I think that's actually about it. Do you guys have any other questions for me?
Does it have to be a licensed contractor? Can you do it yourself?
So it is paid upon completion. You can do it yourself. You'd bring in receipts after it's done. Brian and I would still come out and take a look that that work had been completed and is completed. But yes. Anything else?
Actually, the brochure, before you talk about household limits, then it says based on current gross income of about plus 0.5% of all assets. What does that mean?
So we will take your take a look at your assets. Let's say if you own a second home, take the tax assessed value of that, multiply it by 1/2 of 1%, and include that as income. Include that to your gross income. So that can go along the lines also with like retirement accounts or stocks, bonds, saving, checking accounts, things of that nature. All right. If there's no further questions, I guess I'll turn it back over to Brian. He can explain about our curb appeal loan program.
So we're going to talk about a new program that is starting up this year called the Curb Appeal Loan Program. And it's a new offering. It's in a focus area. As if you can see up here, it's bounded by American Boulevard to the north, Portland to the west, East 90th Street to the south, and Old Cedar to the east. So we have a square targeted area, and that's the area that this program is going to be limited to. And I should point out that with these loans, we're fortunate enough to be in Bloomington where the city is very proactive in wanting its residents to keep their homes in good condition. This is another example of something that the city, along with the HRA, wants you to utilize as a possibility for fixing up your home. The idea is behind or the idea behind this program, let's keep these homes looking in good condition. The eligible improvements are only going to be what you can see basically from the curb, anything exterior related. So I just want to run through it briefly with you. I'm not sure if anyone is in that area, but it's a program where it's a zero interest loan. There is no interest on this one, and it's due and payable again when you sell, transfer title, no longer live in the home. It does get paid back. It's still a loan. It's not a grant. We want to make that distinction, but it will not accrue interest. The other, again, it's going to be due and payable when you sell, transfer title, no longer live in that home. The maximum amount you can borrow is $10,000, and that can go towards, let's see, I guess I'll go to the next slide here. Things like driveway replacement, painting, garage doors, siding, roofing, landscaping. It's not limited to that. We look at possible tree planting. We don't have windows on there, but windows are eligible. Again, it's that aesthetics that we're trying to gear this towards. Let's keep the homes looking good. Stats show neighborhoods, homes that that are well kept and in good shape, keeps crime down, keeps your values up, it keeps the neighborhood safe. It makes good sense. Same income limits on this program. That's really it. It's concentrated, like I had mentioned, in this area. And depending on the popularity of this program, how well it works, we may move to another area, but we're going to see how it goes first. So again, it's something new. It's another offering for you as Bloomington residents to keep your home in good condition. That's it I had for the curb appeal. I didn't have a lot to say at this point, but any questions about the program, anything, fire away.
Does that also include retaining walls?
The curb appeal program?
That's the curb appeal. So the question is about retaining walls. Again, we're looking at what you can see from the street. If it's a retaining wall, I think that you could see from there, yes. If not, that can't be addressed with the curb appeal loan program, we would direct you towards the previous program we talked about. And that one's a 2%, but that one covers, again, any permanent improvement. Retaining walls are definitely eligible under that program. For this one, I think I'd have to get back to you on that. I can't answer that for sure, just because it's one we didn't talk about yet, but that's a great question. Yes?
You see, it said that there were no patios. How about decks?
Again, what we're looking at here in the front, well, patio on the back, what we're looking at, I think, is
He's asking about the citywide program.
Oh, the citywide, yes. Patios are eligible, absolutely.
Decks are eligible.
Decks too are eligible. It used to be that we couldn't do those, but we've since it's a move and replace kind of thing. But they are eligible now. Any other questions? We can't make it this easy on us. We have to have something. Can't believe we did that well of a job, did we? Go ahead.
If someone who lived on that side where you're doing the curb appeal one, can they take advantage of that one as well as the citywide one at the same time?
Good question, and the answer is no. What we're saying is, we've talked about this, and we didn't know. That's a great question, because we talked about that and we wrestled with it, but to carry out the program, to have them work in conjunction, it won't work. It's going to be too difficult to discern between bidding. It's going to make it more complicated with bidding, and what we're going to cover, what we're not going to. So what we say is, we're going to do, if you want to do the curb appeal program, you could do that, complete that, and then once it's finished, you could reapply for the other program, and vice versa. They're going to be treated separately.
Doesn't apply to us, I just thought I'd ask.
That's a good question. I'm glad you did, because we were going to mention that. I forgot to.
Is there a limited amount of funding available? So you might wait 6 months to try to apply and the funding would be gone? Or do you have endless supply of money?
There's not an endless supply. I will say, no, definitely not. Here's one thing I didn't mention about this program, and it's another great feature of the program, is that the loans that we get out to our residents, when they sell or transfer title or whatever it is that they pay the money back, typically that money goes right back into the same program, so it recycles itself. Okay, and that's been a very sustainable feature of this loan. Now, the other thing I'll mention, we use that funding. The HRA has other funding that we use. The city has also agreed to kick in some funding too for this program. As it sits now, though, it's not unlimited, but we're accepting as many applications as we can get. And so far, we haven't been flooded to a point where we don't have the funding to assist everyone that's applied. I'm not saying that won't happen permanently, because with the income limits going way up and the interest rate dropping to 2, we anticipate a lot of applications. At some point, we may have to put some people on hold. Did that answer your question? Yeah. Okay. Yes.
I know you've had this program, the old other program, for quite some time. I'm wondering, what do you see in the future? Do you see yourselves continuing this program in the future?
Citywide program? Mm-hmm. Yes, we hope to continue the citywide program. We realized the sustainability of the program, the previous one, and so we kept it much the same. We just tried to open it up to a few more, really to just a few more people. So, does that answer your question?
I think another thing to look at is, we look back at records, and I think the earliest loan under this present, the way it's set up with a deferred loan, where there's interest and you pay it back. The earliest ones we had seen is 82 or 83, wasn't it? Somewhere. So it's been going on for over 33 to 35 years, and we don't see it going anywhere anytime soon. Things can change, absolutely. I hope it stays around. I like working. I like my job. So, but no, I think it does. I think it really will. It's been, and I love the sustainability portion of this. The fact that money does come back, but it's made in a way for you to be able to make these improvements and not incur those monthly payments. But again, I think we talked about that before. It's a one lump sum repayment. We do not accept monthly payments on this. We say it's all or nothing. Okay. Sir, John, yep, John, absolutely.
I came down here so you didn't have to all turn your heads around. I'm on the city council. I'm elected by the people in the 4th district, which is northeast Bloomington. We have, just a context, we have 7 council members. 4 are elected by district. The people who set up a charter for the city, I think, did a lot of good things. And by having 4 that are across the district, we make sure that they're not all concentrated in one area. So I say it's my district, but when we vote, even the district people vote for what's good for the city. But I want to comment. We're pretty excited on the council. This began in a study session a couple of years ago, actually, when we were talking about the fact that we've spent a lot of time, staff time, and so forth, on developing the 3 nodes, we call them. So we're talking about, like Normandale is mainly an office area. We think of it that way, but there's also quite a bit of housing there too. And then the South Loop, it used to be called Airport South, I think. And I've only lived in the city for a dozen years now, but and we tend to think of that as a Mall of America, but if you've driven out there lately, this summer you saw a lot of cranes. So there's a lot of activity. There's more housing that's going out there, including different ranges of ability to pay and so forth. So the discussion we had, and then the HRA was there for this discussion and shortly after. And the hesitancy in answering some of these questions, it has a lot to do with the fact that we're still kind of developing the idea. And so we end up putting some money into the budget, which is what happened, would you say, 33 years ago? And then that money, the neat thing about the program, one of the neat things in my mind, is that the money just kind of keeps recirculating, so that when somebody sells their home, they pay off the loan, and we've got that money back in terms of being able to loan out. And I've talked to some local construction people. I don't know if they happen to be here now, but they really like the idea too. It's good for the local economy. They talk about getting siding or whatever, going to suppliers of home improvements and so forth right here in our community. And so if any of you happen to live in the section that was mentioned for this curbside loan program, I'd be glad to talk with you a little bit afterwards if you'd like to. And like I say, we're excited about this. the three nodes have provided a lot of jobs and a lot of tax money and so forth that come into the city. And we just decided that it's really time to spend more time on and provide more assistance. And one of the things that we're really very conscious of is that if you live in the northeast portion of the city, that's the oldest portion. Homes were built in the 50s and 60s predominantly, and homes age. You know, and I want to really comment that there's a lot of people who really worked hard at keeping up their home, and so we're not talking about, you know, this is falling apart or anything like that, but some of the homes just have reached their peak, and so if they can be fixed up, that would be great. And I don't know, can I talk about the house that we're hoping to do a demo with?
Oh, sure.
Okay. Maybe you could probably give more detail to it. By the way, as council members, we don't tell staff what to do. We're a policy board. I'm really impressed with our staff in so many ways, but I'll just take a crack at it and you can fill it.
By all means.
HRA is doing more discussion about this, but and I think of it as this old house or whatever that program on education TV used to be, where you would watch, you know, week after week, and they would be showing how they did this and that. And we're hoping to be able to. Some money is in this curbside program. Well, it's maybe beyond the curbside, I guess, but to buy up a house that has been foreclosed or something like that, and then use that in this area as a place where the reconstruction, the remodeling would happen, and people would have an opportunity to come in periodically, is my understanding. And then also to have some video that would be taken of it that would be basically this old house kind of a thing right in our backyard. So also excited about that possibility, because once you see an idea, it sometimes leads to more ideas and more people do it. And so building strong neighborhoods is partially with the housing stock. So I went on and on. Do you want to add some more about that?
Oh, sure. Thank you, Mr. Olson. Yeah, I think we haven't come up with a name, and as you can tell, Curb Appeal Loan Program, it's not a real catchy name, but you know, we like to try and get some kind of an acronym. CALP doesn't really doesn't excite anybody, but anyway, that's what we call it. I think that program, we're looking at model home loan, but we just don't know, like a model home. Yeah, the idea is find something that's distressed, an old property, and then completely redo it. Show the public what we can do with, especially a good example is like a 50s Rambler. It's such a wonderful home. I own one myself. Gone through the whole thing. There's so many things you can do with one of those homes. We want to purchase something that really needs a lot of work, video document it, and then show the public what you can do, and not just do part of it, do the whole thing, and show the potential on what these homes can do. I think it's a great way to show the public what how we can fix up these houses. So yeah, I think that's the idea behind it. And again, we're fortunate to have the city council behind us on that, and they're very proactive. They want to see, the city wants to see everyone maintain their homes. It just makes good sense. I know I want to maintain mine because it's such an expensive asset, and we know it costs a lot of money, and sometimes we can't make those ends meet because of other things that happen. So that's all I have. Did you have anything else, Stephen?
No, that's really it. Unless you guys have any other questions.
Yeah.
Suppose you end up taking out a loan and it's not for anywhere close to the maximum. Now 5 years down the road you have another improvement that comes up that's necessary. Would it be a second loan, or do you just reapply?
Okay, so the question, do you want it? Go ahead. The question is, if you take out one loan, so the max is $35,000. That's the maximum anyone, whether you do it once, twice, I think I kind of answered it there, but you can, say you apply once and you use $5,000 to replace your driveway. 5 years later, you realize that your roof is in need of improving or replacing. You can apply again. That's going to be a second or a third mortgage then. Let's say you have a first mortgage, then you take out ours, that's going to be a second lien or second mortgage lien against the property. 5 years later, you take another one out, another loan, and you can apply. Again, as long as you have the equity and you meet the requirements, you can apply again. You can do it again. That would be a third mortgage. It would be a third lien. We do not add to that. Our loans are not, they're designed that way. We don't want to be adding to an existing one because of the calculations of interest, and there are several reasons for it, but that's one of them. But again, back to your original question, you can reapply up to the point of $35,000. Once you get to $35,000 that you borrowed, we will not lend any more to that same homeowner unless they pay it off and then want to reapply again. You can do that.
So even if, say, 10 years in the future, that cap slides up, more money comes into the program, now the cap will be, say, $50,000. You'd still be limited to the original terms of 35.
Right, if we change that, change the program? Yes, if we change that, and that has happened. I've been here since '96, that's a long time. But at that time, the maximum loan, I believe, was $15,000 in '96, and then we went up to 25, and then now we're at 35. So the chances are, as we, maybe years down the road, we might increase that cap again. When, I have no idea, or if we do, I don't know. That'll just depend on, things go up, the cost of everything increases. I'm assuming at some point we'll bring it up a little higher.
But you wouldn't be limited to the original 30?
No, you would not. Yeah, I'm sorry to answer your question. Yeah, if it was 35 then, goes up to 50, yes, you would be eligible for another 15. And we also don't take into account the interest at that point, because on a $35,000 loan, if you went 5 years out, you're going to have some interest, and it might be, what is that, $1,200 or $1,400 a year? Yeah, $3,500, say. We don't calculate that into that 35. If it went up to 50, you could go for another 15.
How's the interest figured?
It's a simple interest. So right now it's 2%, which is obviously a really good rate. But I use the example of 10,000, nice round number. 2% of 10,000 is $200. It's simple interest. So it's going to be 2% the first year. On 10,000, that's $200. Second year, it's going to be $200. Third year, $200. On up to 10 years, $2,000. $200 times 10 years is $2,000. On a $10,000 loan, you'd have $2,000 in interest. It's calculated simple. It's not compounded.
So what happens if you have a job relocation and like 6 years down the road, you used to pay the 10 years worth of that 2% interest on a 10,000?
6 years.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
So basically, if you end up having a job relocate and having to move before that 10 year of that 2% interest, you still pay that 10% or the 10 years worth of the 2% interest?
Actually, no. And the question is, if you pay it, say you wanted to pay it off after 5 years, we prorate the interest down to the day, actually. So 5 years, it would be half of that 10 year. It wouldn't be 10 years. What we would do is, again, using 10,000 as an example, it'd be $200 times 5 years. So that'd be $1,000 interest. You'd pay back $11,000 on that. Okay, any other questions? Yes?
Sorry, I came late, but when you mentioned interior finishes, so like, would that include like a bathroom remodel?
Sure. So the question's about interior finishes. I know Brian defined them a little earlier, but yes, bathroom remodel, kitchen updating, repainting, flooring, those sort of things. So, any other questions? We do have some information here. If you didn't grab any, if you need an application or something specific, our cards are both in there. There's also some contractor pencils. Feel free to grab something on your way out.
And we'll stay after too. If anyone wants to talk with us, we'll hang around too.
From the time that we fill out the form and you say that you guys sit down with us and have us get bids, and then look over those bids and then have the contractor or whatever to start the bid or start work, how long of a process are you estimating that average time it takes for all those meetings with you to go through, get approved, look at the bids, approve the bid?
You want it?
Sure. So the question was, from the time that you fill out the application to the time that you're actually starting the work. We estimate that roughly somewhere around 3 months. It's give or take. If your home's built after prior to 1978, that includes a lead test. That involves, you coordinating with me, and then I coordinate with the third party, then they coordinate back to you, and then they do the test, they give us the results, and that amount of time typically takes roughly like 6 weeks in itself. So, and then bidding can be a real difficult time. You know, it depends on when you get it, what time of the year it is. Contractors are, you know, really busy or they have a lot of extra time. We kind of put the average time right around 3 months.
If I could add on to that briefly, we look at, you know, the application and then we verify your income. Typically right now we can get at it within a couple weeks, I would say. Just depends on the number of apps, so that changes as the apps come in. But after like the lead test Stephen talked about, that does add a little bit of a delay, but once we get a bid package to you, the ball falls in your court, and that's really where, in most cases, that's where the time really gets out there, because it's how fast a homeowner can get out there and get those bids. Timing, it's the biggest thing. So I like to tell people that, like yourself, that ask that question, you know, a month to 2 months on the paperwork side of it, but then add the bids in. And that, like I say, a month is, you're doing pretty darn good if you can get your 2 bids for everything within a month. It's usually 1 to 3 months to get your bids. And it's really how diligent you are and persistent. You have to call contractors. You have to keep, I hate to say keep bugging them, but that's what you really have to do, because they have schedules to keep, and it just takes time. But it does get done.
As far as the lead test goes, you come out and look at the house, and everything is built in the 50s, 60s, before 78 with the lead, or was it 87 or 78?
78.
Yeah. Same thing as when you sell a house and you have to declare the lead. But now if everything's sealed up, they've painted the whole house so there isn't anything chipped, you know, and it's always water-based, so there isn't any lead. You still need a lead test?
Yes.
Yes. What do they charge for that?
Yeah, the question's on whether or not you have to do a lead test regardless of the condition. We pay for the lead test. We contract with a third party. Typically, and we call it a lead risk assessment, because they not only look at the, well, they do a lead paint test, but they're also looking at your conditions of the paint, which is to decide whether or not we have to address those. So they're looking at all kinds of different possible lead poisoning, what do you want to call it, components in the house. But we pay for that. And I'm sorry, I missed the original part of the question. Now I got to talking. Okay.
Because I know if you sell property and it's prior to that, and you sign on that the lead's been covered and there is not any exposed, you can go ahead and sell it without inspection.
Yeah. Yes, and if you do have lead and if the condition of the paint is such that it's in what they call an intact condition, if you're not disturbing that surface, we don't have to touch it. We, or a contractor or you, do not have to, but it has to be intact. Yeah. The minute you're disturbing that surface, that kicks in the renovate. Is it renovate right? Is that the proper term there? In other words, the contractor has to be certified to be touching any of those components. And then they have to remove it, and they have to, as far as disposal, they have to follow the guidelines. And then when it's done, we have to have a contractor, our contracted company, they have to come back out and do a clearance test to make sure that it's free of lead.
For when you're doing the remodeling within homes and dealing with asbestos for those that engage in your home, is that part of the requirement? Like, do you have to, with the lead?
Did you say asbestos? Okay, so if you have asbestos?
Or the asbestos testing or anything?
That's another environmental area that, you know, really lead and asbestos, the regulations that they wrote for lead are the same as, or very similar to asbestos as far as testing and how that goes. An example I think of is with asbestos is you have a liner, a flue liner. A lot of the older homes used asbestos to wrap the flue, but the only part you see is exposed is about this much. Typically you have to remove that asbestos. What we look for is if it's friable. Now, if you see a tile floor, if it's a 9x9 tile, I believe it is, most of those were asbestos. But what the concern is whether or not it's friable. Meaning, friable means, is it going to fall apart? Is it going to release particles in the air that you're going to ingest? You're going to breathe. We don't eat it, but you can breathe it. And that's what we're looking for. Lead is the same thing. I mean, they're looking for anything that's falling apart or like you say, peeling paint. Basically, it's a failed condition in the substrate, and it allows that paint to fail. It becomes the hazard at that point. Asbestos is addressed the same way.
Or were you guys said you cover the lead testing? Do you cover the asbestos?
Yes, if you choose to, if you choose you want to test the asbestos, that can be covered too.
Are you guys located in this building?
Yes, the Housing Authority, I should have mentioned that too. The Housing and Redevelopment Authority, we are officed in here in the city. We are actually city employees, but we're in and for this, the Housing Authority is in and for the city of Bloomington. It's a separate agency that has a 5-member board. They make the decisions for us, and we're basically city employees on loan to the HRA. But I think of us as the same as being the city, but I think I should mention that it is a separate entity. But we are housed here in the Civic Plaza.
Excuse me, down that hallway, if you go out here, it's way down to the right.
Last office on the right.
I think we'll adjourn, or I'd like to first of all thank everyone for coming. We'll hang around and answer any of your questions, but I think we should adjourn the presentation portion of it. Again, thank you so much for coming, and we hope to see some of you, or all of you, to apply for a loan. Thanks.